In June of 1977, Ted Bundy was sitting in a Colorado courthouse facing a murder charge, and his guards had just left him alone in a second-floor law library with a window that opened. 6 months later, he was in a jail cell 40 miles away, and this time, the exit he found was even stranger. A hole in the ceiling of his cell, barely a foot square. He used both. And the second escape didn't just humiliate Colorado law enforcement, it cost lives. Here's how both of them actually happened, and why the same flaw ran through everything Bundy did. By the start of 1977, Bundy was already a convicted felon. Utah had sentenced him to 1 to 15 years for aggravated kidnapping after a young woman named Carol DeRonch escaped from his car and later identified him in a lineup. But detectives across 4 states suspected him of far more. A string of young women who had vanished or been found dead. Colorado had one of the strongest cases. Karen Campbell, a nurse who disappeared from a hallway of a ski lodge in Snowmass in January 1975. Her body was found a month later. In January 1977, Colorado pulled Bundy out of Utah State Prison to stand trial for her murder. And then, Bundy made the decision that set up everything that followed. He dismissed his court-appointed lawyers and announced he would represent himself. Bundy had been a law student, not a distinguished one, but he understood exactly what self-representation would buy him.
Class is graduating in about a month.
In law school? I'll bet you I'm gonna worry about law and any of them.
A defendant acting as his own attorney has rights an ordinary inmate doesn't. He can't build a defense in handcuffs, so the judge allowed Bundy to appear in court without leg irons or restraints. He was granted access to the courthouse law library to do his research. He got phone privileges, boxes of case files, and more freedom of movement than any other murder defendant in the building. Deputies grumbled about it. The court held that a man's right to defend himself came first. On the morning of June 7, 1977, during a pre-trial hearing at the Pitkin County Courthouse in Aspen, the court took a recess. Bundy asked to go up to the law library on the second floor. His guard let him go in alone. He was, after all, a legal researcher now, and researchers needed quiet. Behind the shelves, Bundy opened a window, looked down at roughly 25 feet of open air, and jumped. A woman on the street watched a man drop out of the courthouse window, land hard, and limp away. He had sprained his right ankle, but he walked off through downtown Aspen in plain sight because no one was looking for a fugitive yet. Inside the building, minutes passed before anyone realized that the defendant in a murder case had left through a window. Roadblocks sealed the routes out of Aspen within the hour. More than 100 searchers went out with dogs, and for days, the town sat inside a dragnet.
So far, these roadblocks have turned up no sign of Ted Bundy.
And here, Bundy made the first in a pattern of mistakes that would define both escapes. He had no real plan for what came next. He was brilliant at getting out, he was terrible at staying out. Instead of running far, he went up, onto Aspen Mountain.
Jumped the 25 feet to the ground. In fact, you can still see the indentations in the grass here where he landed. From here, Theodore Bundy decided to head for the hills.
He broke into an empty cabin and took food, warm clothes, and a rifle. Then he wandered. For days, he moved along the mountain in cold, wet weather, at one point heading south toward another town before turning back. He missed 2 trails that would have carried him out of the search zone entirely. The ankle slowed him, the hunger wore him down, and the whole time he stayed inside the perimeter police had drawn around the town. Down below, Aspen had turned the Manhunt into something almost surreal. Bundy was already a convicted kidnapper and accused murderer, but the public still had no idea of the full scale of what investigators suspected him of. To many locals, the handsome former law student who had jumped from a courthouse window became a bizarre kind of fugitive celebrity. A restaurant sold a Bundy burger. Shops printed joke t-shirts about him. Meanwhile, The man at the center of it all was starving on the mountain directly above them. On the 6th night, Bundy came down into Aspen and found a Cadillac with the keys inside. He was minutes from the edge of town, but 6 days of cold and hunger had wrecked his judgment and his reflexes. Around 2 in the morning, 2 sheriff's deputies noticed a car weaving across the road and pulled it over, expecting a drunk driver. Instead, they found the most wanted man in Colorado, exhausted and hollow-eyed behind the wheel of a stolen Cadillac. They recognized him on the spot.
It took about 2 glances. He was pretty altered. His appearance had been altered by glasses and a minor growth of beard.
The escape had lasted 6 days, and he had never made it out of the valley. Bundy went back into custody, but not in Aspen. He was now held in the Garfield County Jail in Glenwood Springs, about 40 miles away, while the murder case moved forward. You might assume that after a defendant jumps out of a courthouse window, everything about his confinement tightens. In court, it did, but the jail itself was old and thinly staffed, and it was about to make a series of assumptions that Bundy would take apart one by one. Because within weeks of being recaptured, he was working on escape number 2. Using money smuggled in by visitors, Bundy obtained a hacksaw blade, reportedly bought from another inmate for $500. In the ceiling of his cell was a metal plate about 1 foot square, around an old light fixture. Night after night, timing his work to the noise of the cell block, Bundy sawed around the edges of that plate. When it finally came loose, he found exactly what he was hoping for above it: a crawl space running over the cells. A 12-inch opening is not an escape route for a grown man, so Bundy changed his body to fit the hole. Over the following months, he cut back on food and dropped roughly 35 pounds. If anyone noticed him thinning, there was a ready explanation sitting in plain sight. He complained constantly about the jail food. Then he began rehearsing, climbing into the crawl space at night, moving through the dark above the jail, learning where the beams ran, where the walls were, and which rooms sat beneath him. During those night crawls, Bundy found the crawl space's one perfect exit. It ran directly over the apartment of the head jailer, who lived inside the building with his wife. A ceiling panel opened straight down into the jailer's own closet. Then the court handed him a deadline. In late December, the judge granted a change of venue. The Campbell murder trial would move to Colorado Springs, a jurisdiction where, by his own account, Bundy believed a conviction would mean a death sentence. He now had every reason not to wait. On the night of December 30th, 1977, the jail was running on a skeleton holiday crew. The jailer and his wife had gone out for the evening. Bundy stacked law books and case files under his blankets in the shape of a sleeping man, climbed into the ceiling, crawled the route he had rehearsed, and dropped down into the jailer's closet. He changed into street clothes from the apartment, then he opened the front door and walked out into the snow. No alarm, no fence, no count until morning. And even the morning count didn't catch it. Guards glanced at the shape under the blanket and moved on, exactly as Bundy had predicted they would. It took roughly 17 hours, until afternoon the next day, before someone finally pulled back the blankets and found a pile of books. By then, the trail wasn't just cold, it had already crossed state lines.
Kidnapper Theodore Bundy has escaped from jail in Colorado. This time Bundy fled the Garfield County Jail in Glenwood Springs.
Bundy's first stolen car broke down in the mountains, and a passing driver gave the stranded motorist a lift. He caught a bus to Denver, and by early the next morning, while his cell still appeared occupied, he was on a flight to Chicago. From there, a train to Ann Arbor, Michigan, where on January 2nd, he sat in a bar and watched his hometown team, the University of Washington, win the Rose Bowl. Then a stolen car south to Atlanta and a bus to Tallahassee, Florida. On January 8, 1978, he stepped off near the Florida State University campus and rented a room under the name Chris Hagen. Colorado, meanwhile, was still searching Colorado. In 1978, there were no national databases flagging him in real time, no cameras tracking bus stations. A fugitive with a new name in a state where he had no record was functionally a new man. For a week, Bundy lived quietly in Tallahassee on shoplifting and stolen credit cards. Then, in the early hours of January 15, 1978, he entered the Chi Omega sorority house at Florida State. In the space of about 15 minutes, he attacked 4 students in their beds with a wooden club. Margaret Bowman and Lisa Levy were killed. Karen Chandler and Kathy Kleiner survived with severe injuries. Within the hour, a few blocks away, he broke into another apartment and beat a 5th student, Cheryl Thomas, who also survived. A sorority member coming home late saw a man at the door holding a club, the only eyewitness description police had. 3 weeks later, on February 9th, he abducted 12-year-old Kimberly Leach from outside her junior high school in Lake City, Florida, and murdered her. She was his last known victim. By then, the FBI had added Bundy to its 10 most wanted list, but Tallahassee investigators still had no idea that the man they were hunting for the Chi Omega attacks was the fugitive from Colorado. Bundy himself was unraveling. He was out of money, cycling through stolen cars, carrying a wallet full of other people's IDs. Around 1:30 in the morning on February 15, 1978, a Pensacola patrol officer named David Lee ran the plates on an orange Volkswagen Beetle creeping out from behind a restaurant. The car came back stolen. When Lee tried to make the arrest, the driver fought him, broke free, and ran. Lee fired, chased him down, and the two struggled over the officer's gun before Lee finally got him cuffed. In the back seat, the prisoner gave the name from one of the stolen IDs, and for the moment, the arrest looked like nothing more than a car thief who'd panicked. On the ride in, according to Lee, the man said something the officer couldn't yet understand. "I wish you had killed me." For 2 days, Pensacola police didn't know who they were holding. Their prisoner fed them false names and stalled while detectives worked to break through them. Then he told them himself. The man picked up for driving a stolen Beetle was a fugitive on the FBI's most wanted list. And the courtroom that finally got Ted Bundy wasn't in Colorado at all. Florida convicted him of the Chi Omega murders in 1979. The case turning in part on bite marks on one of the victims that forensic dentists matched to Ted Bundy's teeth, and of Kimberly Leach's murder in 1980. 3 death sentences. And at his own murder trial, incredibly, Bundy once again insisted on acting as his own attorney. The same maneuver that had opened the law library window in Aspen. This time, it bought him nothing but a televised spectacle. Even on death row, he never stopped working the problem. In 1984, staff at Florida State Prison reportedly found hacksaw blades hidden in his cell, and discovered that a bar in his window had been sawed through and glued back into place. The third escape never came. The appeals ran out instead. In his final days, facing execution, Bundy confessed to investigators, detailing 30 murders across 7 states, with the true number still unknown. 3 of those victims, Margaret Bowman, Lisa Levy, and Kimberly Leach, were killed after December 30th, 1977. On January 24th, 1989, Bundy died in Florida's electric chair. Colorado quietly let the Karen Campbell charge go. There was no point anymore. The murder trial he jumped out of a window to escape, then crawled through a ceiling to escape, was the one trial he never faced. He got out twice, he never once got away.
Do you deserve the punishment the state has inflicted upon you?